I did not have that in me. So at Christmas, I went home. My parents were stationed in DC at the time, and I just told them, I was like, Mom, Dad, I cannot do nursing anymore. And they were like, what in the world are you gonna do? And I was like, oh, I don't know. I really like the idea of the patient-nurse relationship and forming a plan together of like, hey, here's where we're at, here's where we wanna go within the next week, this is what we're gonna do. And I felt confident in communicating that plan to my patients whenever I had them. And I was like, what can that career be? Well, being a liaison between target audiences and the organization you're working for. And so I told my parents, and unlike Ms. Heckert, they were like, what are you gonna do with PR? What kind of job are you gonna get with PR? Not like, you should go into PR. And luckily we had a neighbor who lived across the street, and she worked for American Airlines, and she was in PR at American Airlines, and she came over and talked to my parents about PR and how it was growing and evolving, and that's how I landed in PR for that degree. I worked in the financial industry in marketing and PR for about 7 years, and then I was able to be an adjunct instructor in fundamentals of speech. So that got my feet wet, and I really enjoyed it. I also worked with the Youth Initiative Segmented Marketing for Lister Hill Credit Union, and with that I was able to do scholarship contests and get to know you guys, in college students and high school students, and I was like, oh, this is great. I taught financial literacy for a little while in that position, and so I really felt confident, and I felt kind of a pull to move into teaching in the higher education world. So luckily a position opened up, and my mentor was here, and I got to meet Ms. Heckert, and I love UNA, alumni from UNA. I just felt really called to come back here and teach. So luckily the position opened up, I was offered the position, and here we are. So yeah, I love working with you guys every day, and it's awesome. It's definitely a calling, and it's what I'm meant to do.
So I'm hearing a lot about the impact of interpersonal experiences and even the impact of you all's passion for mentoring others. And of course, not only are you good communicators, you're also expert scholars. So every scholar has that moment when their voice begins to take shape. So was there a mentor experience or challenge that helped you find your voice as a researcher or educator?
Okay, I've had several mentors in my life, but the one that really stands out to me was Dr. Beth Garth-Rarick. And Dr. Garth-Rarick recently retired a few years ago from this program. She was actually my advisor whenever I came to school here, and I transferred over to public relations from nursing. And she was just that beacon of light that really helped me understand the profession and helped me finding jobs and best practices and how to get involved. So I really appreciated her as my mentor. She's had a lot of experiences and just really shaped and molded me in the way that I can best help you guys.
My interest in scholarship started out, of course, in audio work, and I've done some work in that area as far as publications, also on technology, a book chapter, but my work began to center around women in leadership, and in particular Black women in leadership, and then evolved into Black women and women of color in higher education. And so that's where I'm sitting now. As for mentors, Dr. Ed Foote was one of my mentors in this department all those years ago. His office was where Dr. Kane's office is now. He took a great interest in me as a student, and I was a hard worker. I've just always been that way. I'm a Virgo, forgive me. But I always worked really hard, and he always encouraged me. From the time I met him, he would take me to different places, different shoots, and then I got married. The semester I was graduating from college, I married the love of my life, who I'm still married to now for 44 years later, and that's Lynn Sanders. But I remember telling him, Dr. Foote, I'm getting married. I was excited. And he was like, what are you doing? It was not the response I expected, right? He was like, you're too talented, you've got your whole future ahead of you, why are you doing this? And I was, because I love him. And so I did, and I married him, and I'm glad I did, and I wouldn't change that for anything in the world. And Dr. Foote fell in love with him as well, and saw that he was a great guy. So he was my mentor, but then as I worked in the field here in teaching, Dr. Ernestine Davis, who was in nursing, she was one of my mentors, and also Dr. Leland Davidson. Dr. Ernestine Davis has retired now, but Dr. Davidson passed away a few years ago, but we started at the university at the same time. He was a retired superintendent from Mississippi and then came over here to work as a full professor, but also as an assistant for diversity to the president, who was President Robert Potts at the time. And also President Robert Potts. They were all three mentors, and they were the reasons that I decided to go back and get my doctorate. I'm a competitive person, I own that, not in a negative way, but if I'm going to be somewhere, I want to be the best at whatever I'm doing. And they were like, you need to get the PhD. And I was like, I need to get the doctorate if I want to move. At that time, I was an instructor, and if you all don't realize, now they're lecturers. Lecturer is now the term for that position, but I was an instructor / lecturer, I guess. But you move up through higher ed from lecturer to senior lecturer to assistant professor to associate to full professor, and then you can gain merit. In order to do that, I knew I had to have that degree. And so, married and with a family, working a full-time job, having to be on the air over there every day. I think Dr. King was at 6:35 or something like that. I was coming in every morning, and I knew I had to do it, and they were like, you can do it. With the support of them and my family, I was able to accomplish that. And that's why I'm thankful today. I am a full professor and merited, but it was because of those three people who sort of also supported me when I had that fire under me. They kept the kindling going, you know. It kept me striving to get that degree. And so those three people are my mentors in the field that I've been in.
Hi. One of the things that I've been really grateful to experience is professionally, I've had a lot of mentors. A lot of these names aren't going to mean anything to you, but when the early morning news shifts on the NPR stations I was doing, the news director there was incredibly supportive and really helped guide my more traditional media career there. When I was in agencies in New York, the CMO, the big companies, my account supervisors were all very hands-on in my professional learning and guidance through growing that expertise, which was challenging in a variety of ways. But getting into teaching, my first teaching experience was also in New York at City University of New York. And Dr. Lynn Applebaum was the head of the communication program there. And I connected through her through just different professional networks, and she was like, come on and lecture. Just come on and do it, it's no big deal. And this is something that I've been wanting to do my entire life. So for me, it was a very big deal to get into the classroom. And you know, when you have the opportunity to do something that you've been wanting to do your whole life, I was like, all right, well, this is gonna tell me, am I gonna be able to do this, or is this gonna be a bust? And luckily, I fell in love with the classroom. And it was a little bit of a rocky start, but I knew that the classroom was where I was supposed to be. So I was thankful to be able, once I moved down here, I was able to be an adjunct. What's interesting is when I first started here, I was fresh from New York agency world, which is a completely different energy, vibe, language, etc. And I remember my first teaching evaluations, she is smart, but she needs to go back to the agency. She does not talk to us like we are students. And I was like, okay. I had to figure out how to translate this from agency world into teaching world. A lot of learning curves, and luckily I was recruited by Dr. Darfur. I've had amazing mentors through my multiple chairs and other senior faculty who have helped guide my way. I do have to give a shout out, not to be a brown noser, to our current chair, Dr. Tim Worley, because he's really helped shape my research area and empowered me to really explore the different areas of research that I'd like to pursue. Hopefully, not only in pursuit of my professional advancement here, but also just in ways to better serve my students. So I've been really grateful along the way to have a lot of really, really strong men and women lighting the way, correcting my path, sometimes gently, sometimes not so gently, but luckily I was wanting to learn and wanting to listen and able to really take their advice and progress. So those are the really big ones for me, I think. Oh, no, I love that.
So the great thing about PR and communications is that these are fields that help you shape how messages move through the world. And then, of course, you all have unique experiences as women. From your perspectives as women, where do you see women's voices having the greatest impact or still facing great challenges in media, public discourse, or within various organizations?
Well, I think one of the things that we're still seeing in businesses, especially at the top, the really powerful hubs, is there's still not necessarily an overrepresentation of male leaders in powerful roles, but a less representation of women. So I think there's an opportunity where we can see more traditional higher positions and more of the business and organizational side of media entities going towards women, based on qualifications, of course, but having those avenues and pathways for women to ascend to those leadership roles. One of the areas I think where women's voices can be the strongest is that we have a lot of women creators and journalists who have built incredible communities through non-traditional media outlets. You have the traditional route, which is great, but then with the advancements in technologies and being able to produce and distribute your own content, you have more female voices just present in media environments, traditional and non-traditional, and you have these cultivated communities of collective voices, collective ambitions, and just topics that maybe never have been approached before, discussed in certain ways, and just exposure to ideas and experiences from women who are producing and distributing their own media and having amazing relationships with their targets, opening ideas and discussion about topics that maybe people are a little bit sensitive about, or having a women's perspective is now a unique perspective in the media environment. So I think there are definitely still some challenges, but hopefully different avenues and pathways will open up to expand on those opportunities, and also women will keep empowering themselves through the new mediums that are available to get their voices and cultivate communities specifically for areas of interest.
I wanted to make sure that I paid tribute to a couple of men too before I moved on to this question about mentors in my life. When I first was about to graduate from college, I did an internship at a radio station and ended up working at that radio station in news, and had two men there who were mentors in my life, Bill Jernigan and Bill Irwin. They were what I called Renaissance men at the time, because Bill Jernigan was not only working at the radio station as a reporter, but he was also working for the Birmingham News as an investigative reporter, and he was also an author. Bill Irwin was also working at the radio station at that time as the news director, but was also writing for the Post-Herald, and he was also the Channel 19 television bureau chief in the Shoals area. But both of those men took me under their wing when I became a young journalist, and taught me what it was to do good journalism, how to tell good stories, how to get my facts right, make sure I'm reporting the truth. And thanks to them, both of them have since passed away. Bill Irwin moved to Hawaii and worked as a civilian with the military after retiring from the National Guard, developed cancer and fought it for a while and passed away in Hawaii. Bill Jernigan actually lived just right down the street and worked as communications director at UNA after he left the radio station. He passed away in his home, unfortunately, from a heart attack. But both of those men were very instrumental in my life as a journalist, as a young developing journalist, and I always try to give them their proper dues, even post-mortem. Women and their voices, I wrote down a few things because I didn't want to ramble. And I wanted to make sure that I shared with you some things I've learned over my long life and career. One of the things is find what you're passionate about and advocate for it, whatever that is, but always consider your impact, whom you are impacting, and how you're impacting them. Your voice is the most powerful thing that you possess. I always say the First Amendment is the greatest piece of constitutional legislation we have in this country, and that's freedom of speech. But we also have to learn how to use our voices and our freedom to speak whatever we want to, wherever we want to, and however we want to in a prudent manner. And I learned in my early 20s, just because you think it doesn't mean you have to say it. And so I tell people to use that with prudence and with wisdom, and make sure that you're not saying something just because you have the ability to say it. In my career, I've always had, thankfully, I always thank God that I've been fortunate in that I've always had great experiences in my career. And as a woman, and as a Black woman, in higher ed, Ms. Heckard was talking about the number of women, or a lack of leadership amongst women in corporations. But it's the same way in higher ed. The numbers are low, and it's even lower for Black women. And women of color. So I use my voice and my impact as a former DEI director for the College of Arts, Sciences, and Engineering here at UNA, but I still use it. Wherever I go, whenever I speak, I use that because I've had great experiences as a woman in this industry and as a woman in higher education, but I've also had some challenges when placed in a leadership position. So I always tell people, and especially people that you're going to work with, make sure you're always truthful, always remember that people are different from you. And you have to learn how to get to know other people, their cultures, their ideas, how they operate in the world. That is so, so very important. Because what you say, what you do can have impact on people, and learn that really, really early. The third thing is to know with confidence who you are. I tell my students in class, Given can tell you, I tell them all the time, students at UNA, you're the best. And you can compete with anybody in the world, including every woman in this room. I would put them up against any Research One institution, Alabama and Auburn, NYC, Illinois, wherever they are. I think the women in this room are going to do great things. Have that confidence to know who you are. Just always work hard, use your voice in a positive way, and also continue to learn. I consider myself a lifelong learner. I've worked on certificates from Cornell. I'm about to work on another one. And also learn to listen. That is a gift. And you know, whether you're a woman or a man, learn to listen. That's a skill. And just be sensitive to those you're traveling the road with and what path you're on. And the third thing is to realize as women, if you become storytellers, PR professionals, comp studies professionals, that it takes care. And make sure that you allow yourself to learn from others, learn about their experiences and how they contribute to the world, and use your skills wisely. But I will tell every woman in this room, you have a voice and you use it. I learned to use my voice in the 5th grade when I was 10 years old. There was this boy, I've shared it with students in the past, and I'll share it with you today. Before I was 10, I went to an all-Black school. I was raised to go to an all-Black school. I had all-Black teachers. Everybody in the lunchroom, everybody was the color of me. There was no diversity there. And loved those women. And I mean, they could pop your tail just like your mom would if you got home if you did something wrong, right? So because they knew your mom and your daddy. And so I went to a school, we had to integrate when I was 10 years old, and that was 1970. And I went to a school, first time I've gone to school with white students. And I think now, and over the years I've learned this, because I went all the way through high school with this particular young boy at the time, and we graduated high school together. I won't say his name, because he's since passed away. He actually committed suicide. But I would sit in Mrs. Levi's classroom, and I was nervous, and I'm sure all of the kids at that time were nervous, and because it was a big thing for all of us to integrate at that time. But he would sit behind me every day, and he would call me a monkey. Every day, that boy would sit forward and whisper in my ear, Patricia, you're a monkey. And my dad had always taught his kids not to fight. Unless somebody hit you, right? But he was like, do not fight. That is not what we're about. So I was thinking about my dad in my head. Until one day, Betsy, he leaned forward and said, Patricia, you're a monkey. I said, forget daddy, forget everything. And as y'all say today, on my mama. And I said to him, I called him by his name and I looked him straight in his eyes and I said, if you ever call me a monkey again, I am going to clean this floor with you. He sat back and he looked and his eyes got big as 50-cent pieces, Luke. He never spoke to me out of turn again. I was basically shy up until that time. Dr. Kane and Dr. Worley and all my colleagues wouldn't believe that now, but I found my voice that day. That's when I found my voice and I began to use it. And it was, Patricia was alive at that time. Went all the way through high school with him, some of those people. We still get together, our classmates, 40-something years late. We're supposed to eat dinner tomorrow, Thursday night together. Classmates still get together. But your voice is a very powerful thing. But you can use it in a very positive way, or you can use it in a negative way. As a woman, as a man, you can build people up, or you can tear them down. You just have to learn how to use it in the correct way. So my advice or my journey has been learn to use your voice with confidence, and especially women, because you can be shut down in rooms or you can be ignored. But know what you're talking about, have confidence, and learn how to use that voice and use it powerfully.
Okay. So for me, at some point we're going to talk about our research and what our research interests are. So I am a children's consumer media research scholar. I absolutely love my children, and so this allows me to tap into my kids. And one of the things that I'm doing right now, I'm in a PhD program at the University of Alabama, and I'm studying advertising and public relations. Again, my research area is children's consumer media research. So I took this critical and cultural theory class in the fall, and it was a very interesting class for me. It put some things and ideas out there that I was not really aware of, and one of the authors that really spoke to me last year was Sarah Ahmed. And in her piece that she wrote, honestly I can't remember, I've read so many articles this semester, I'm so sorry, but it's critical and cultural theory. It's about power and who owns power, how do we interpret power. And so one of her articles talked about power in the home and how having a voice in the home can actually lead to a bigger impact than actually being someone who goes out and rallies. Now, there are a lot more thoughts to that and a lot of methods to that, but I truly believe that how you are and how you, operate in your home definitely has a way to affect people and make change, no matter what that change might be, for good or for bad. But I really believe that our voices have a great impact at home. And that's why I chose children's advertising and media consumer research because of that. I feel like whenever we're growing up, we're in our formative years, and that's literally what I study. I study ages 4 to 10 because there's a lack of research in those ages. So for me, that's really important, how we operate at home and amongst our peers. Maybe it's not in the home, maybe it is literally within your friend group, but you have a powerful voice within your friend group, so utilize it. As far as greatest challenges, I think both Ms. Heckert and Dr. Sanders spoke to how I was going to speak on it. So just, be aware, do your research.
Well, I want to take the time to thank all of the students that are here today. This next question is something that started for the students. So many of our students are still discovering their voices as communicators. What advice would you give them about speaking up, pursuing ideas they care about, or just building their confidence in the field of communication?
So the first thing is not everybody's going to be in your corner. okay? Not everybody is gonna like your ideas, how you operate, so find people who do and who will support you. That's number one. And then from there, you're gonna soar, okay? The second thing, I brought this book. I am obsessed with this book. I have a nonprofit and foundations PR class that I'm teaching right now, and this is the book we are reading. It's called The Go-Giver, and it's by Bob Berg and John David Mann. And so there are 5 laws of being a go-giver, and there are 3 that I really want to talk to you about today, just briefly. The first one is the law of compensation, and so your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. So what does service mean to you? That's a rhetorical question, don't answer that. What does service mean to you? What does that look like? It's like treat others how you want to be treated, okay? So serve them and serve them well. The second thing is the law of value. Your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. So, my husband, we had restaurants for a long time, and one of the things that we really prided ourselves in was that we would offer barbecue. We had a barbecue. We had 306 barbecue. And we would give our customers way more food than what they were actually paying for, which in the long run, whenever he was operating it, it worked out well. But then once food prices started going up, then we had different managers in there. We weren't seeing as many customers come through because they started getting rid of all the extra food. That's why we are no longer in business. So this is why your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. Then the last one is the law of influence. Your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. Now, that doesn't mean don't take care of yourself, but also watch out for other people. Serve them well. Okay, all right. What was the question again?
So the question is one that is targeting our focus on our students in regard to giving them some advice. What advice would you give them about speaking up, pursuing ideas that they care about, or building confidence in their field?
Okay. I think I sort of addressed that, so I'll make this really, really short. Be who you are. Don't ever let anybody change you. I always tell people you are uniquely made, and that is for a reason. Because I'm sure every woman sitting on the stage today would not want everybody in the world to look like them, act like them, be like them. That would be a very boring world. Even if we all think we're awesome people or whatever, you would want differences. So always be who you are and be unique. You're a gift to the world. I'm a consummate reader. I love to read. I read all the time. And one book that I've read lately is, and how many of you have heard this book, The Let Them Theory? Anybody in this room heard of that one? Read it while you're young. And because it will teach you that you cannot control, make someone else do something, an adult. You cannot do that, but the one thing that you can do is control who you are, how you treat people in the world, how you interact in the world. That is the let me. So always be aware of that and take that wherever you go. I think that's one of the big books by Mel Robbins right now. She also has a podcast out that teaches you that. And I'm like Miss Whitten over here, learn how to take care of yourself, but also give to others. And learn how to not necessarily put yourself first. You always esteem others above yourself. That's actually a scripture. You esteem others above yourself. But at the same time, take care of who you are as a person. And put yourself out in the world. You're here for a reason. And I can't wait to see what some of you all are going to do, what you're going to be. Like, you know, I look out for Luke a lot because I know he's graduating and I know his passion for what he wants to do. Oakley, I've seen him and some of the things he's talking about. I can't wait to see what you all are going to do in the world, and you will do great things. That's what I believe in, is encouraging people to do their best, When you've done your best, at the end of the day, whatever that is, that's all you can do. Just make sure you do your best. After that, let it go. But the best book I've read right now is The Let Them Theory. Let people do what they're going to do. You cannot control another adult. I don't care who they are. You just can't. That's a lesson that can be learned very, very early, but you can control how you treat others, how you interact in the world, and what you do.
I like all that as well. I'm gonna read that book. One thing that many of my students have heard me say, because this is most of the time their homework, take naps. Give yourself a break when you need it. Don't be scared to get downtime. Your brain is tired, whether you're writing a paper, or you're writing a press release, or you're writing a news story. Take a break. Take a nap. Make mistakes. Those are big ones. You shouldn't know how to do everything, even when you're as experienced as we are on the stage here. I make mistakes all the time. My students regularly tell me my mistakes. But make mistakes, and don't be scared to make mistakes, because the next one is ask for help. Ask questions. Don't be scared if you don't know. The only way for you to know is to ask. I know it's a cliche, but there really are no stupid questions. You can now ChatGPT some things. If you're embarrassed to ask certain questions, just make sure that you validate the information that you receive and check it. But also just ask questions. And following up on that, listen to your teachers. Not just the teachers up on stage and the ones that are in your classroom currently, but whatever teachers you find, whatever mentors you find, the people who came before you in whatever capacity, your bosses, whoever it is, ask them questions and then listen to them. Most of the time, people are not speaking for the sake of talking. Well, some people. Some people are. But for the most part, if you're willing to learn, they're going to be willing to teach you. But that means you have to speak up and you have to listen. And the last one I have is just keep going. You're going to get discouraged. You're going to make mistakes. Look to the people who can lift you up to keep you going. Acknowledge it's okay to make the mistake. I'm going to keep going. I'm not going to let this knock me so far back I'm not able to move forward. So take naps, ask questions, listen to your teachers, make mistakes, and keep going.
Another question was for the students, but I'm taking in the advice as well. So just to summarize myself, so I can remember, I need to focus on myself instead of trying to change other people. I need to also appreciate the value of how I communicate at home, because it affects how I communicate in the world. And I also need to sleep. And understand that sleeping isn't necessarily laziness. Rest isn't laziness. Rest is just rejuvenation. So before we conclude, I'd love to open up the floor for questions. Our last question is, what gives you hope right now about the future of women's voices in communication, media, and scholarship?
I think something that gives me hope, especially in the world of academia, we have a lot of what's called accessible communication now. Like Dr. Sanders doing the podcast. Yes, she has an academic background, but she's bringing it out into the world. Here in our department, in a lot of comm programs, we are very skills-based and experiential learning. Our job is to get you a job. Yes, we have other responsibilities with research and publishing and different things from a faculty level, but at the end of the day, we're all teachers because we want to prepare you for your career and we want to empower you to succeed. So what I'm hopeful about is having people in academia making things much more tangible, making things much more skill-based, so you are competent when you graduate. You don't just have a degree, you have a portfolio, you have a resume, you have job prospects, whatever it is that you need to move forward. And also that things are accessible. I tell my students in my classes, if how I'm teaching you, how I'm instructing you is not resonating, if you're not learning what you need to be learning, whether it's being proven on tests or assessment or papers or presentations, whatever it is, then I need to adjust. And I think a lot of faculty have evolved past the place of being untouchable, infallible, etc. We are all hopefully accessible and hopefully learning all the time. And I'm very hopeful that that kind of trend will progress and continue. in academia to make sure that our students can come to us and that they're actually learning the competencies they need to succeed in whatever career comes after graduation.
How many of you have seen the movie The Devil Wears Prada? And a sequel's coming out, right? So I'm excited about that too. That's one of my favorite movies. But one of the questions in that movie is when Hathaway is, snickering at the blue sweater. Anybody remember that scene? And she's like, and then the woman, Meryl Streep, says, well, why are you laughing? And she just makes her feel like an idiot, right? Because she's like, do you know what research has gone into this sweater? And she's got the winter look, and she's telling them, why do you have on that sweater? It's research-based, right? So the question centers around that. I'm like Ms. Heckard. Research is wonderful, and we should do it. I think research is what makes the world go round. We all know that things work, or they're true, or they're supported, or they're valid because of research. Like Dr. Worley, I call him the research machine in our department. He is a strong researcher. But I am like Ms. Heckard. Research should not be contained in a bubble where only scholars are talking to scholars all the time. We should make our research accessible so that it can be put to commercial use as well to help with that. I started that podcast as a creative scholarship project back during the pandemic in June of 2020. I'd always wanted to produce one. And so I said, I'm going to pull the trigger because I had a little more time in the summer. We were all shut down, and I started it. And I've been doing it now for 6 years. And that research, and I have to do research on the topics that I'm talking about. And the podcast is called This Prof Life, This Professor Life, Women of Color in Higher Education. And I found out last night that now the podcast has moved on from being a hobby for me because of the number of downloads, which I'm grateful for, to now being an influencer. And so I am happy about that because I'm saying now this thing is out there not only as a scholarly project, but it's accessible to the world. And it's being heard in over 20 countries. It was being heard in over 36. At one point I had to stop because I was helping take care of my mom and I had 50,000 jobs. My mom passed away 2 years ago. But research, as she said, and the things that we do, we're trying to make them where they're applicable to people out in the world to learn from as well. So whenever you do research, make sure that you're promoting knowledge and continuing conversations that we use in the classroom, etc. We have to have that, but also make it accessible to other people. And I think some of the things that Ms. Whitten is studying right now with children in media is going to be one of those possibilities.
I'm very fortunate that I get to come to work here every day. And what gives me hope is coming into the classroom and hearing from my students. Since day one, I have just been exhilarated getting to work every day with you guys and learning who you are on a professional and personal level and just seeing how you are able to change the world and what you know. And I think that that really does give me hope and it helps me get to work every day. I used to struggle getting to work every day whenever I worked in the industry. Start time would be 8 o'clock and I'd be like, 8:30, sounds good. And that was without 3 children, y'all. My children are 6 years and under. So if I can get to work at 8 o'clock, not because I have to, but because I want to, that's a huge deal. So you guys give me so much hope and just so much to look forward to in coming to work every day. So thank you guys, seriously, and not brown nosing. I'm very, very truthful about that. So thank you.
So we have about a little under 15 minutes before our end time. Does anyone from the audience have a question that they would like to have addressed or answered?
Dr. Worley has one.
If you, knowing what you know now, if you were a student today, what would you, if you were, like, say, a student in this program, what would you do to maximize your experience knowing what you now know professionally and personally?
So I want to repeat the question for anyone who's watching the live stream. So from what I'm understanding, if you were a student today, what would you, I forgot the question.
It's like, what would you do differently
What would you-
to maximize
Maximize
what you
your
know
experience,
now?
knowing what you know
Maximize
now.
your experience based off of what you know now. Two things come to mind. The first thing is I might have gone straight through my higher education experience because I had that 7-year gap of industry work. Luckily, my master's was paid for. I went to Georgetown University, which was very expensive. So thank you, Lister Hill Credit Union, for buying my master's degree. Nice one. They're great. That's number one. I might have done that, but also maybe my life wouldn't have turned out as great as it is now. I don't know. And number two is maximize the connections that you have. My dad, I told you guys, or most of you know, my dad is military. He worked at the Pentagon his last assignment, and he was like, "TP, I can get you a job." And I was like, "Nah, I'm gonna do this on my own." So dumb. Could have made 6 figures starting out and did not. That's okay though. It's fine. I love where I'm at, and that's great. But also, last thing just popped in my head: travel. Travel, get to know different cultures, have different experiences. Don't tie yourself down to one particular idea.
I agree with the travel. I preach that all the time. Get out of the South, get out of the country, go abroad, go somewhere and learn about different people. It is the most eye-opening and enriching thing you'll ever do. I've taken students to China, taken them to Spain, and I told you some of the domestic trips we've taken. My advice would be to maximize from people who have traveled the path that you're traveling now, as Ms. Heckert referred to earlier. And also just do the work. It's just doing the work and making sure that you maximize on your deadlines. I'm very deadline driven, but that's been my whole career. Submit your best work and don't wait last minute. You just can't do really, really good work if you wait till last minute. I don't care how often. We can't do good work, waiting till the last minute. So I agree with the travel, maximizing use of us. We're here for you to use us. You're our why again. You're the reason we're here. So use us and also do your best work. And if we refer you to someone or to do something, it's because we think we know it will help you. So just try to listen to some of those things too. And make friends and good connections and network.
Definitely the networking. If I was back in undergrad, I definitely would have maybe gone to class a little bit more and hung out with my sorority a little bit less. But the social aspect of college is really important because of networking. You never know who the people in your class are going to be after you graduate. So I would say keep in touch with your faculty and your fellow classmates. I have classmates that are doing all sorts of amazing, incredible things, some that are relevant to my area of expertise and some that are, one of them is the chief of surgery at a hospital in Dallas. He and I have nothing in common, but he's an amazing person to stay in contact with, even remotely on social media, just in case something comes up to where there's an overlap or something beneficial for students or whatever it is. So I would say keep those contacts going with your faculty, the staff, and then the friends and everything you make in college. I should have done that. I should have done that better. Another thing is take advantage of the opportunities, whether it's study abroad, study away, different travel programs, but also, getting involved with your community, having those internships, taking advantage of opportunities to talk to your faculty about extra work that they do on the side or their research. You have so many opportunities right now that you're not going to have once you graduate. You have immediate connections, you have built-in networks, and you have built-in programs that are designed to serve you. And I should have taken more advantage of those opportunities when I was in undergrad and graduate school. took advantage of plenty, but I would say maximizing those opportunities, because once you get out in the real world, it can hit hard. And having a foundation of those networks and the fact that you've taken advantage of opportunities can really serve you in the long run.
Well, thank you, ladies. You all have offered some great insight and some expertise and some personal life experiences. So we have about 7 minutes left, so I guess we'll just conclude with me saying that even though the conversation on stage is over, I know it's not over for you all. I know you all have an open door policy, so I just encourage anyone who has any more questions or wants any more advice, I'm sure you all will be happy to give them that.
Stick around if you want.
Yeah, stick around to ask more questions if you had a question but you didn't necessarily